Hello everyone, welcome to another ride with Mo Allen. In this ride I will be racing stage 3 of the Fresh Outta 24 race in the C category, or Zwift Racing Score 350 to 520. You'll see here that my current racing score is 475, 95 kilograms. Figured I'd start showing my FTP and rider weight and racing score at the beginning of these videos. Anyway, so this one is 2 laps of the loop-de-loop course, which honestly I don't ever remember hearing of the loop-de-loop course. Apparently I've done it before because I did not get a route badge for this ride, but it's 25 kilometers total, the 2 laps is, with 289 meters total elevation. So it's basically flat up until you get to the hilly KOM forward. Show the short, minute and 45 second to 2 minute climb, depending on how the group is going. It ended up being a little over 2 minutes for this group. So the interesting thing about this ride is that I was downgraded pretty what I thought was severely after the update to the Zwift Racing Score. I think it's V3, maybe V2, but anyway. In between my last race, which was the Devyzed Epic race, which I did Sunday night, few days before this one, which there's also a video of on my channel, and this race, between those two, I got downgraded 75 points in the Zwift Racing Score. So I was 550 8 days ago, and I think for that Devyzed race I was 550, and then for this race, as you saw in the beginning, I was 475. So I was and that puts me in basically back in the C category, essentially, which I had been in B for a long time, even with the Zwift Racing Score. So I was skeptical that this was the right group for me, honestly. So starting out here, I was keeping an eye just on how things go. Like, I was really unaware of what the dynamics of this group would be, just because I felt like it was a whole new group to me. I've been riding racing Zwift for many years. I started Zwift when it was in beta in 2015, so I've been riding a long time, and I basically since then have ridden on Zwift basically every single week since 2015, at least once a week, and often more. So this one, it kind of threw me for a loop, pardon the pun, in terms of knowing what to expect. I assumed that there were many others who were similarly downgraded like I was, but I also assumed that maybe there were others that were upgraded. Maybe some, like me, were downgraded and thought they shouldn't have been. Maybe because of that, maybe they thought they could, flex on a new group because they were just B and got downgraded into C. That was not my thinking, but I thought it was possible that it could be someone else's. So you'll see me here just stay sort of in front of the group for, I think it's about 6 or 7 minutes before I finally decide that I could kind of drift to the back and get the maximum draft benefit. So we're 4.5 minutes in, and I'm at a 318 watt average, which is pretty on par for like the start of these relatively short races. I don't know for sure, but I don't think that's much different than it had been in the old category I was in. That being said, I didn't feel in danger ever on the flats, really. So in that way, that's different, I believe, than the other category I was in, for better or worse. Oftentimes I would like have to hang on the flats at some point during the race, but I felt like that at no point during this race. I guess up until the sprint at the end. The hills were a different case, and we'll talk about it when we get to the hilly comm. But on the flats, so here you can see me sort of drifting to the back, taking it easy, not taking it easy, but keeping an eye on the group ahead. Again, my strategy, as always, for this was to stay with the front group for as long as I could. So we started out with 98 riders here, and we've got a pretty big group still formed here after just the 6 minutes. So yeah, I really was just keeping an eye on everything. I assumed that I would be okay on the flats to stay with the group, which was the case, as I mentioned, and that I would need to see what kind of power the group was pushing on the hills. That was a big question mark. I really didn't have a question mark about the flats. I assumed going down to the C category and having relatively high raw power, that would keep me basically safe in this 25 kilometers, however much of it was on the flats, and that absolutely was the case. So you can see me here in the back, just trying to get that draft. You'll see at the end that my watts per kilogram were, I believe, of the top 10 riders that finished, I think mine were like half a kilogram less than the next closest rider in the top 10, but my raw watts were a bit higher. So just an interesting dynamic there. I mentioned that only because one of my previous videos I labeled it as a drafting masterclass, because I drafted really, really well and saved a lot and had similar outcome in terms of my power output relative to the rest of the group. So here we go, still staying with the group. So interesting, you can see a bunch of people popping their power-ups here. I decided that there's multiple, I didn't know where all of the power-up opportunities would come. Turns out there were multiple, but I didn't know which power-ups were available, and I knew the featherweight was the best for me on the climb, so I decided that I'm not going to use the power-up until the climb, basically no matter what. So that's what I did. I kept my feather and just staying with the group here, a little bit of inevitable push over that little bump there as we make our way over and down through downtown. The recon I did for this was simply to look up the route description on Zwift Insider. I actually didn't realize that there were 2 laps of the loop-de-loop course. I missed that, I guess, when I registered for the race, so I didn't have the distance at which the climb started committed to memory from looking at the Zwift Insider route description, but I knew it was from the route profile. I remember having that in mind. I knew it was towards the end. Actually, watching this back now, I forgot that the update to the minimap shows the whole lap or route profile. So I never once looked up, I'm looking at it now, but I never once looked up at the little mini map up top there where it's showing the the green section for what's completed and the black for what's to come. So if I had seen that, I would have known when, approximately when the climb was coming as well. But given that I knew that you come down the hilly KOM and back around to start another lap, I figured that after this banner here, we were going to continue on to the climb. So here again, I'm just keeping an eye on the group and getting ready to get geared up for the climb to come. Here we go. As we approach the climb here, you can see a lot of people using their power-ups. I had a little bit of power-up envy here that I was saving my feather and, missing out on at least 2 opportunities before this to use the power-up in the group. But again, I didn't want to chance getting a draft power-up when the feather-up was more useful on the hills, so I stand by my strategy. So here we are. You'll see me increase the power here just to get to the front of the group before the climb and keep an eye on what the front was going to do. Strategy is just to try to not be out ahead, but mark any of the wheels that I could. If it seemed like someone was just incredibly strong, I probably wouldn't have tried to stay with them or close it down, like one rider off the front. But if there were 2 or 3, I probably would have tried to give it my all in this relatively short race to stay with them. You get a bit of recovery after the hill. So there you go. One rider a little bit off the front there. Again, not worried about them, but looking at the group of 7 or so, 8 or so riders ahead of me and just trying to stay with them. So we're 12 and a half minutes in, 300 watt average, 177 beats a minute at the moment, and up over 500 watts. Standing up on the pedals there momentarily. Just trying to make sure I stay with this group. I was happy to see that for this first part, I was able to stay with the group. And so this is what I mentioned, how I felt in no danger on the flats in this new sort of group that I'm in. This climb was hard, but felt manageable. Like I was approaching the edge, right? So this felt appropriate for the group I was in if I'm supposed to have been able to finish with the front group up this climb. That is not something that happens often. It happens seldom, actually, on the B group or the 520 to 690 category I was previously in. For this kind of climb, inevitably there would have been a group that I couldn't have stayed with. But in this group, for this race, on this climb, on this day, I was able to stay with this group. So that's just something to note. I don't know if that's, just because of the group. I don't know if that's because of how I'm placed. But it was interesting to see. Still one rider off the front there. So 2 minutes and 8 seconds for that climb for me with this group. And feeling, again, it was tough. And so now I'm just trying to, again, stay with the group and make sure that I can recover as much as I can as we go up this little bump that's going to come, and then back down and loop around till we do it all again. So here I am with the front group still. Pretty large group for half hour in. At 287 watt average, currently sitting at 160 beats. Feeling not too bad after having drafted with the group, and the group wasn't pushing all that hard except on the little incline. So I am feeling okay coming into this climb. Definitely feeling it a little bit, knowing that I wasn't necessarily just able to blow everyone away on the climb the first time. So knowing that everyone is going to be feeling a little bit fatigued here, but I also need to keep an eye, dig deep, and put in the best effort I can to, again, stay with the group up the climb. That is my goal. I did a lot of this race in pretty high cadence. These climbs, I'm in the big ring and a very hard gear actually. I'm only a few cogs off my cassette from the hardest gear, if that, maybe even second to last, I'm not sure, I forget. So here, just up on the pedals, trying to stay in front here if I can. I've said it before that I will, if feeling strong enough, try to do these climbs on my own terms, try to stay at the front just so I don't have to chase people down. That depends. On a climb like this, after 30 minutes, it's relatively short, right? But it's just long enough at, 2 minutes that it's not like I can, on this day, I wasn't feeling strong enough to just be completely up at the front and try to put people in danger behind. So I am just keeping an eye on the watts of the riders around. Happy to have gotten past that little first part and ready to finish the second part of the climb. So here, use the power up just to get the boost on the steep part there, stay with the group, finish strong here. And now I'm looking forward to, once again, recovering. See me at 181 beats a minute there. It's feeling it pretty substantially here. But again, know that I seem to be well positioned in the group in terms of the flat. So if I can just, my hope is if I can recover a bit, stay with the group, that I can contend on the sprint finish. So that's my plan here. I'm not trying to break away unnecessarily or proactively, and just try to sit in, recover, and mentally prepare for when I might launch my sprint, depending on how the group behaves. So here we are, 0.7 kilometers to go. Just keeping an eye on the group. Sitting in, know that I can get the benefit on the flats here unless someone is putting in a big dig. I know I'm just gonna sit in here and try to time the sprint. I think, as happened on the Decadash race that I did, I think I waited a little long, right? So here I'm winding up, and I think right here I probably should have gone like just a second earlier. It was a good sprint. I don't think I got up over 1,000 watts. I don't think so, but came in, gave it a good effort there, and came in 3rd place in the group. So here you can see, so I said half a kilogram, watt per kilogram, but that's not true. So 3.4 watts per kilogram for the rider in front of me. It came in 2nd, Throughout there. I was at 3.2 for the ride, but raw watts 303. So you can see my raw watts were 50 watts higher than anyone else. So as we look at the Zwift power here, let's see, came in 3rd, 36.26. And as we look at the Zwift Racing Score, I went from 475 to 481. So I actually don't know how often the Zwift Racing Score is recalculated, right? Like, so I finished. Is it what I saw there, which was taken probably, I don't know, 10 or so, somewhere between a little under 10 minutes from when I finished the race? No, probably a lot less than that. I think only a couple of minutes after I finished the race did I take that screenshot of the Zwift Racing Score through the companion app. Does that score change depending on what other riders in the group do? I actually don't know. It was the same hours later, I think. Is that true? I'm not sure I saw it actually, but I feel like I've seen it change from when it was initially posted. So anyway, good ride. Finished strong. Happy with the 3rd place in the group. And yeah, coming into this, I was a little skeptical at being downgraded to this category, but this ride seemed pretty appropriate, at least in terms of if I want to contend for the front. I was able to do that with this group. So I'll be interested to see if that trend continues for other races in this category. So I appreciate you all watching. Click the like button on the video if you want to get notifications. Click subscribe, it helps. And I will talk to you all later.